Training camp, good news, bad news, interesting news, all kinds of news. Let's go inside the locker room and talk about it all.
Yeah, it's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source. We the pulse of the city too. Landlocked. Got the game in the headlock. Localize every time. Can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top two and we not too. Plugged in daily digital on YouTube.
All right, we got a lot to get into. Welcome to the locker room, number one source for Texans daily digital content. I'm Landry Locker. You can hear me Monday through Friday at 10 to 2 Central on Sports Radio 610 and on the Odyssey app, which is where you likely heard our interview with John Metchie today. This is where you follow along digitally. Got you covered here as well. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, appreciate you for coming back. We got a lot to get into in regards to day 7 of Texans training camp. We had some good news. We had some bad news. We had some interesting news, perhaps end to the small bit of drama that we've encountered during this D'Amico Ryans era. And what does it all mean? We'll get into that for a while. We'll get into that for the next hour or so. I want to start with the good news. CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud had his best day of camp today. He was by far the best QB out there. He threw a nice touchdown pass to Nico Collins. He was commanding the huddle. He was making all of the throws. He was using his legs right. Like, you can't really measure it because they're not taking him down to the ground, and you don't know, when he could or couldn't be sacked. But there were times, specifically in like situational, where he was tucking it and feeling it out and turning potentially negative plays into positive plays. And D'Amico Ryans spoke after practice, and this is what D'Amico Ryans had to say about CJ Stroud.
CJ, you see with him, just the talent level, the arm, the throws that he makes on a day-to-day basis, it pops off of the tape. Every day in practice, you see, what he does, the leadership, encouragement to his teammates and everything around him. Like, he's doing some really good things for us to be a young player, and he continues to improve. And that's what we ask for both of those guys. So it's cool to see two guys working together, competing, but also growing together at the same time. That's great for us. I tell our team, we need all our quarterbacks. I don't care who goes out there first or say, we need all our guys to grow and play well. And that's what I see from them. That's what makes me excited about the group.
All right. Well, what is the process though? Because there's been a lot of talk about the process. Some people annoyed that there's even like a notion that there's a quarterback competition. Some people think that it's better for quarterbacks to sit out. Other people think that it's, better for them to play right away. There's no exact formula, but what about this process? Here's Coach Ryans talking about that.
Right. I think each guy, right, is on their own. As a rookie, you come in, each rookie progresses at different rates of speed, right? And you just want to naturally see that progression continue to ascend and not put too much on the guy. You just want him to go out and play with a clear mind and play fast. And you want to take your time with him. You don't want to just put him out in a bad situation. If he's not ready, you don't want a guy to start off that way. You want to build, right? Continue to build off of positive things that he do.
Well, he had a positive day, and as far as the coaches speak go, you hear coaches say stack positive days. If D'Amico Ryans could follow up today, tomorrow, and stack up another good day, and then you got a Saturday night practice, it wouldn't shock me to see CJ Stroud start the preseason game and never really give the gig back. If Davis Mills starts the first one, I would be willing to bet CJ starts the second, but we could be seeing the beginning of CJ Stroud kind of taking over and never really looking back when it comes to the quarterback spot. And I could very easily see that happening. Shout out to 713 Sports in the building. The unfortunate news today, Texans lost Scott Quessenberry for the season. It was kind of to the right of us. We were broadcasting. We saw, and if you were listening to the show, and hopefully most of you were, if you want the top Texans radio content, everyone dropped to a knee. You could tell something was going on. The cart came out, and Scott Quessenberry was carted off. You could tell immediately that it wasn't good. Typically, when a guy goes down like that and then he gets carted off, very rarely is it good news. And as expected, Scott Quessenberry, he's going to miss the entire season with a torn ACL and an MCL. Now, what does it mean? And that's the question that I'll ask as we go through all this news that happened today, because there was quite a bit of news for the Texans. Like, what does the injury to Scott Quessenberry means? Well, it means that Juice Scruggs is going to be thrown to the wolves maybe a little bit sooner. Now, did the Texans really think that Scott Quessenberry was that much better than Juice Scruggs? Or was this just kind of one of those things where you kind of make him earn it? Juice Scruggs has looked pretty good. He's been running he's been playing some center and he's been playing some guard. So he's been playing on two of the top three units. And now he's likely going to be your starting center, and there's likely going to be like no growth. Now, I know a lot of people are kind of sour on Scott Quessenberry because, let's be honest, he was terrible last year. Kind of thrown to the wolves. I don't think he expected, or I don't think they expected him to be the starting center. They didn't expect, I mean, they should have known that Justin Britt was kind of washed, especially watching him in camp. But they tried to go with Justin Britt, and Scott Quessenberry kind of got thrown to the wolves. I did wonder if maybe that would be a character builder. Some people thought that maybe this system fit him. It's unfortunate for him that he won't get the opportunity to prove that. But let's be real. You traded up to get Juice Scruggs in the second round. I've heard the analogy, and I forget who said it, but I think it was very, very well put. It might have been Brandon Scott. I think Brandon Scott said it. So I'll credit B. Scott. I know it's a second round pick, but when you use a second round pick on a center, it's almost like a first round pick when it comes to positional value. So I would say that you had these high expectations for Juice anyways. He goes in there. So the answer to what does it mean? It means that Juice has to go out there. It means Scott Quessenberry not going to get a shot. Don't know how aggressive you have to be trying to find a center. I don't know what they think about Morrissey. I don't know if some of these other guys that they have could potentially play center if needed, but I wouldn't be shocked for the Texans to be kind of working the market. But in a perfect world, you're working the market for a backup, and Juice Scruggs is able to validate the belief you had in him. And quite frankly, all the good things that D'Amico Ryans has said about Juice Scruggs. Like, he has said a hell of a lot of good things about Juice Scruggs. Said earlier this week that Juice Scruggs was singled out in a film session. So they already had high expectations for the young man. Young man gets an opportunity earlier than projected, and that's just kind of where they're at. Scott Quessenberry out for the season. Other news, Steven Nelson got a tweaked contract. And I know we've kind of had some fun with this, but Steven Nelson's been really good in training camp. Now, I don't know the contract details. I'm intrigued to hear what Texans Cap has to say and how he describes it. But Steven Nelson, he's not getting a $2 million raise, at least not without earning it. He was scheduled to make the $4.5 million. He can earn up to $6.5 million. I don't know what these incentives are. I don't know how attainable they are. If he plays the way he's played, maybe he gets it. On the open market, I don't know what Steven Nelson would have gotten, but Steven Nelson gets a tweaked contract. Some are saying, well, you know, his shenanigans worked. I don't think so. I think him coming in and playing ball and keeping his mouth shut, I think that kind of helped. And it does seem like, you know, he fits in nicely with what these players are doing. And I think it also shows that Nick Caserio does not let his ego get in the way of rewarding his players in business. So when we ask the question that we always like to ask whenever news comes up, what does it mean? What does the Steven Nelson contract mean? It means you have a general manager who doesn't let his pride get in the way of whatever he thinks is best for business. That's the most encouraging thing, because let's be honest, we've seen, we've witnessed, we've watched a lot of football coaches around here, a lot of general managers, a lot of front office guys, that if a player called them a clown freak, they might cut him, even if it's not in the best interest of the team. Like, we've heard blowhard Bill O'Brien talk about, the best interest of the team, and he spells team like Belichick. But a lot of his actions don't really resemble doing what's best for the team. Nick Caserio, when he says, at least when it comes to the Steven Nelson thing, I'm going to do what's in the best interest of the team, he kind of backed it up here. Did he have to do it? Hell no. Do I think Steven Nelson made kind of a fool of himself with all this? I do. But he's been playing well, and Nick Caserio did not let the ego get in the way. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that probably would not have handled it the same way. You don't want to get pushed around too much, but in this situation, you're talking about making him earn $2 million and checking it out. And not checking it out and having to go out there and actually play. So there you go. Nick Caserio, bigger man than I. Bigger man than I. Speaking of the DB room, Shaq Griffin spoke today. This is what Shaq Griffin had to say about the way in which he thinks that this DB room is. Because we were talking earlier about, Steven Nelson getting beat out by Shaq Griffin. That's not happening. Now, could Shaq Griffin be a nice depth guy for this squad? Maybe so. But this is what he had to say about the DB room, and he even shouts out Steven Nelson.
Oh, man, we got some studs on defense. One thing about it, in that DB room, man, it's stacked. It's definitely a cool group to be a part of, especially competition-wise. I'll get a chance to learn from a lot of the guys. I seen Stingley stepping up in a big way. I see Petrie being the leader for that room that we need him to be. And, Steve is just a savvy vet, so it's good to continue to learn from him. I feel like everybody is taking a step above that competition. So, that DB group, we got a bunch of studs in there, so I'd love to be a part of it.
All right, got a bunch of studs, according to Shaq Griffin, and it's been the talk of camp, the DB group, really the defense as a whole. Defense clearly has a huge advantage, big time. Tyler asks, is paying Steven Nelson something that can be an olive branch for David Mulugheta? The answer would be, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think it really hurts. Storm's asking if I'm playing in the media football game. I cannot. I would not have anyways, but I have like 12 stitches in my back right now. I had to get something cut out on Tuesday, so I won't show that scar, but yeah, it's there. So I'm not. I have some stitches in my back right now. Didn't miss any time. Little 3:30. Shout out to Dr. Charlie Aramburo. I think that's how you pronounce it. But yeah, he ripped a little something out of my back that was pressing up on my rib, a little lipoma. It was nasty. I'll just put it that way. It's gross. I showed Lopez it today. Not great. So definitely not playing in that game. Chase Winovich, he passed his physical. He took the field. I got to tell you, this guy scares the living crap out of me. He's been on the sidelines working out, and he almost looks like he wants to kill somebody. This is what his walk up to practice looked like, and I kid you not, this has been what he's been doing on the sidelines, like real frantically, whether he's working out or not. This is just what this guy has been doing. The other day, he just had his shirt off, and he was walking on the sidelines, like getting mad, taking his physical. But as I walked up to practice today at about 8:52 or something, 55, You could just see this guy, and you can tell he's kind of ready to maybe bite somebody or something. This guy. Oh, she's ready for some football. Now. But yeah, Winovich on the field. Now, what does it mean for Winovich being on the field? I mean, he's going to have to compete for a roster spot. I don't know what it means. I think I said this on the earlier video. I think it means that a chance of a fight in practice increased by about 20%. I don't know if Winovich makes the squad. That's a sneaky deep competition he's going to be in. But if you saw this guy working on the sidelines, he looks like he wants to fight everybody, even the trainer. I mean, when he was doing that physical yesterday, I thought he was about to DDT the trainer. But his psycho ass got out there. I am very intrigued to see. Maybe we can get a look at some one-on-ones and see what he's going, what he's working with. Blue Boy 9 almost forgot about Winovich. Plays with a lot of speed. I'm sure Ryans can get the best out of him. How much speed does he play with? I don't think he plays with as much speed as, like, say, Jacob Martin. We'll see. I did like him at Michigan. That guy says we should have signed Jimmy Garoppolo. You definitely are that guy. If you believe that at this point. I do think Jimmy will do pretty good for the Raiders. Yeah, cue the hard-on music with Winovich. Yes, he is the definition of the hardo. Talking about Steven Nelson. Steven Nelson played his cards close to the vest. That Casario looking one. Ha ha ha. Heard a lot of vest jokes. John Metchie also spoke today. We got to interview him on In the Loop. It was a really, really good interview. I'm going to say this about Metchie. It's interesting because obviously what he's gone through the last year and a half is something that, I mean, I think a lot of us can kind of in some way, shape or form relate to. I'm sure cancer's touched the majority of the people in here in some way, shape, or form. That seems to be like the A topic with John Metchie, and it definitely has an impact on what he is and the type of character he has. But it just kind of seems like even before all that, some of these personality traits and some of this charisma, it existed as well. And when Nick Saban comes out and says that John Metchie is everything I've ever wanted in a receiver, that's pretty crazy. When you think about all the wide receivers that Nick Saban has coached and all the wide receivers that Nick Saban has had, I want to say he coached Plaxico Burress at Michigan State. He coached Julio Jones. He coached Calvin Ridley, Ruggs, Judy, Jamison Williams, Metchie. He's coached a hell of a lot of receivers. And when he comes out and says something like that, and I know I'm leaving some guys out. Y'all can sound off on Alabama receivers. I think that kind of says a lot. And when you actually talk to the guy, he's an impressive guy. And he was already a very, very interesting guy just because of all the places he's lived, all the stuff he's gone through. And the fact that they traded up for him and drafted him in the second round over some pretty good receivers. I asked him, and I'll do a video on the actual stuff that we talked about. So be on the lookout for that, likely over the weekend. But I just asked him, like, at what point do you kind of get tired of talking about this stuff? And at what point do we kind of get to the point where you start talking about, the guy who was drafted in the second round, expected big things? And he kind of said, yeah, you do kind of get not in like a, real bad way, but yeah, at some point he would like to get to where he's just talking about ball. And I can't really blame him. And quite frankly, if you've watched Metchie out there, he looks pretty good. He looks pretty good. Him as well as Tank Dell. They look really good. Xavier Hall, Landry, do you foresee a trade for a wide receiver before the season? Mike Evans for number 3. Damn, that's some Madden stuff right there. He ain't going for no number 3, but they don't need to trade for a wide receiver. But if like Mike Evans for a 3rd round pick, what are we just throwing stuff out there? Jacob said after the interview, he's a Metchie guy. I appreciate you for listening. I recommend all of y'all too, man. We're just playing all kinds. That guy, this gonna be your last one for a minute. Pearson Woods for Josh Jacobs. All right, I'm putting you in timeout, brother. You're out of control with some of these things. I appreciate you for coming through, but the foolishness in the comments and hypothetical trades that make my head hurt, on top of the Jimmy stuff, I gotta put you in timeout, man. Maybe you come back and bring it a little bit better than that. That's some pretty damn weak stuff, right there. We're inside a week until game time, until game week or the game. The over-under on when they're going to announce the starter for the game, I would say is probably Monday. I would anticipate that perhaps on Monday when they return to practice, they'll name the starter. I could see them doing it on Tuesday. There's no reason to be the hardo game time decision type of stuff. So I don't anticipate that being the case, but I think by Monday or before, the over-under, like if I were in Las Vegas and I were starting a book, and let's say I was like putting it on the odds, I would say Monday would be my guess as to where they where they start the deal, or where they announce the quarterback. That would be my guess there. Nick Caserio, he's going to be on Payne and Pendergast tomorrow. Those interviews are always fun. He's going to be on there in the morning. I actually asked them to ask Caserio a question because as I was driving in today, I left the studio. So full disclosure, during training camp, instead of just driving to camp, which is where we broadcast, I go to the studio. I put some stuff together, audio, run sheet, all that crap. And then from there, I drive to the to camp, to Kirby, to NRG. And I heard Nick Caserio on the way, like when I was on Kirby, and he was talking to Vandy, Mark Vandermeer, and John Harris. And he was talking about his wife. He was talking about New England, and they were like joking about, where do you stay in New England and all that type of stuff. And then, Nick was talking about how New England has a close place in his heart. And he went through, all these things there and all these good times and stuff. And he was like, I met my wife there. And I started thinking, like, Nick Caserio kind of strikes me as a guy who isn't like going to go out and meet a wife. The way that he works, especially at that point in his life, like I'm sure, I bet he was working like 18-hour days. So Lopez and I started, kind of speculating, how did Nick Caserio meet his wife? Because Nick, and maybe he surprises us. Nick, maybe he was at $2 pint night and he walked up to his wife and asked her out. Find that hard to believe. So Sean's going to ask the question about how it happened. They didn't have Bumble or Tinder back in that day, back in the early 2000s, or whenever it was. And if they did, he strikes me more as like a eHarmony, or It's Just Lunch, or maybe It's Just a Carb-Free Lunch. Stole that joke from Sean Pendergast. So I'm really intrigued to know how exactly Nick Caserio met his wife. Might not interest y'all. Kind of interests me. And I do think she worked for the Patriots. I think Jacob is correct. And that would make sense. Like, doesn't that make sense for how Nick Caserio? Of course, he would meet his wife at work because he never doesn't work. So that would make 100% perfect sense. But I could easily see Caserio. Yeah, and I think a lot of people, if Nick Caserio is going dating, he ain't swiping. He's going eHarmony. He's going Match.com. He's going It's Just Lunch. He is not going, and he's damn sure not going out to a bar and meeting a lady. It's either a setup. Maybe he saw her at Whole Foods pushing a cart, or they work together. The work together makes the most sense. Nick Caserio ain't going on Bumble. Ain't no way that Nick Caserio is going on Bumble. There's no chance in hell. Other stuff going on around the AFC South. I'm very intrigued by what's going on right now with the Indianapolis Colts and perhaps not having Jonathan Taylor this year. Because if you were just listing the most important resources that all of the rookie quarterbacks have, like let's say you're listing CJ Stroud and you say, okay, Bobby Slowick. And you're listing Bryce Young and you're saying, okay, the coaching staff, some weapons. I don't think there's any rookie quarterback, A, that needs help, and B, and I'm talking rookie quarterbacks that are actually like looking like they're going to play, and B, has as much of a asset as Jonathan Taylor. Now, I know there's some Dameon Pierce fans, but Jonathan Taylor, let's be honest, top 5 running back in the game when he's right. Anthony Richardson, threat with his legs. So you have the zone read threat with him and Jonathan Taylor. I'm sure even like the skeptical Anthony Richardson guys, that kind of scares you a little bit. I'm intrigued to see if Jonathan Taylor even plays this year, because I could see some sort of like hold-in type of thing for Jonathan Taylor. And that really intrigues me. Jacksonville, I'm intrigued as well. I am wondering, I'm starting to feel like, I know fantasy drafts are coming up. I'm starting to feel like Travis Etienne is going to be a must-get. I really am. I'm starting to feel like he's a must-get because I don't feel like they're going to be blowing teams away or anything like that. I feel like there might be some dump downs. I think Travis Etienne might be a must-get, and I'm starting to wonder about that receiving duo. Now, are they going to be able to block as well as they did last year? And are they going to get luck to where, Tennessee's quarterback gets hurt and they can get in at 9-8? Are they going to be better than 9-8? And is their defense going to be better? A lot of the guys on their defense played pretty well last year. I don't think Jacksonville's going to run away with it. And from Tennessee, I thought Tennessee was going to be a scrappy team to begin with, especially with Simmons and Derrick Henry. And, I mean, let's be honest, Tannehill wins when he's in there for them. So I'm intrigued by that. But if Jonathan Taylor's not there, that's wild. Yes, the Titans did release a tackle. Apparently, he was trying to fight everybody, including Jeffrey Simmons. So they had to release the guy, which I don't know why you would want to fight Jeffrey Simmons. That doesn't seem too smart to me. Forever Royal says that Ridley is a top 3 pick in fantasy, like top 3 or top 3 wide receiver. Either way, I think you're kind of reaching there, sir. I think he's okay. I think, let me put it this way with Calvin Ridley. With Calvin Ridley, I think, did I say Stephen Ridley earlier? Maybe. But with Calvin Ridley, I think that he was worth at least kicking the tires the way that they did. That guy is crazy. Appreciate you, but you're nuts. But I think Ridley was worth kicking the tires the way they did, but I don't think he's worth taking that early in the draft. I think Twisted Mind is about right. I think he's about a 5th rounder. Like if we were doing an AFC South fantasy draft right now, I mean, it would have been Jonathan Taylor as the first guy taken, but I don't think you can take him. So you would take Derrick Henry. God, and it's always, and I know most people have like slept on Derrick Henry and looked back and regretted drafting him. I'll raise my hand and admit that. I'm scared to do it this year and then him actually fall off. So Derrick Henry would probably be the first player taken in the division. Then you're taking Etienne at some point, like maybe late first, early second, I would think. I don't know when you take Taylor at this point. I would be terrified. Someone's probably going to take him in the second in your league, and that might end up being a wasted pick. And then you're going to have to start looking at Dameon Pierce. When do you take Dameon Pierce? Is Dameon Pierce going to be someone that you want to take in the second? Do you want to take him in the third? They've thrown out the committee word. What do you do there? And then you start looking at receivers, and it's Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley. Like, who would y'all take first? Because Calvin Ridley seems to be the one that's ranked ahead of Christian Kirk consistently. I think that might kind of be a little bit of a mistake. But it's between those, and then do you think Michael Pittman Jr. is going to have a good year with Anthony Richardson throwing him the ball? And then the tight ends, I guess Ingram goes before. Yeah, I guess Ingram goes before Schultz, maybe. But if those two were on the board, and let's say Schultz is healthy, and by the way, Dalton Schultz was getting some work in on the side. He looks like he's doing a little bit better. But I just wonder, like, is Ingram going to get some of his production taken from Calvin Ridley? And are they maybe going to run the ball a little bit? There's just really kind of a lot of possibilities there. Ridley over Kirk, it's tough. It's tough. I don't think that, I don't feel passionate about either one. With Texans receivers, man, you're probably not even considering that till maybe the 10th in like a 12-team league. Maybe like you get to the 8th and you're like, man, let me see who's the number one receiver, and you just try to cross your fingers and hope. But with the Texans, that's tough. That's real tough with the wide receivers. But yeah, it would have been probably all 4 running backs taken unquestioned in the first 2.5 rounds. Now it's, when do you take Jonathan Taylor? I don't even think he's on my board at this point. Maybe if we get to the 4th round and late 3rd, I don't know. It just seems a little bit risky. I love Xavier Hutchinson more than anyone, but if you're taking a Xavier Hutchinson in fantasy, then man, you might as well take your league entry and flush it down the toilet. Because I like Xavier Hutchinson, but he ain't getting drafted in any fantasy draft. That would be wild. Dell and Hutch in the last. I don't think Hutch has value. I love Hutch. I wouldn't anticipate him being value. I don't know that I would recommend any Texans receivers. I mean, I think they can produce from a team standpoint, with what the Texans are trying to do. Yes, but fantasy is a lot different. If I were drafting someone in the mid rounds, you want to get someone who's just going to get a lot of catches. I would go with Woods probably Woods. Woods is the man. Blue Boy, if you don't know about fantasy football at this point, man, you need to figure that out about yourself. You need to figure that out. Dude, I'm the guy that sent you the tweet about your office background. I don't even remember that, sir. Or ma'am, I don't remember. Who am I taking number 1? God. I'm either taking Christian McCaffrey or Bijan Robinson. And this has turned into a fantasy thing. I'm either taking Christian McCaffrey or Bijan. I think Bijan's going to catch a lot of balls. I think a lot of these running backs are just kind of I don't want to say coasting. They're starting to become like business decision guys. Like, do you want to take Saquon at this point? McCaffrey's all in. So I guess you got to go McCaffrey, but I'm taking McCaffrey or Bijan at this point. And then I might lean, like, honestly, I might lean wide receiver. And I like Chubb. You're asking about Chubb. I like Chubb. No, he's a beast. He might be ageless. Between him and Henry. Henry's kind of got me messed up because I've kind of slept on him for like 3 years. And then now I feel like it's just kind of one of those things where you take him and then he ends up backfiring on you. GU, are you worried about Stingley? I heard wide receivers were getting the best of him today. He's fine. They're playing man with him. The advantage goes to the wide receiver when you're playing man without being able to sack the quarterback. Derek Stingley's fine. He's challenging guys. He's getting extra work in on the side with Metchie. This is actually a pretty cool scene that happens after every practice. I'll show you all this. I actually tweeted it out. If you follow me on Twitter or X or whatever the hell they call it now, this is right in front of us where we are, but this is basically an everyday occurrence of Stingley with John Metchie. They do this every day. Here. And behind him is Tank Dell. So you have Tank Dell back there doing his thing as well. The other day it was Nico Collins that came in, but it's always Metch and Stingley. You know, they're going through routes. You can see him kind of talking about it. Stingley lines up, working on the footwork. You can kind of see Metchie's kind of directing it. The funny backstory on this too is, so Metch is right here, and all the way out here is where the media tent is, and he's actually supposed to be there. So all the media types, they're waiting because the coach and first two players have already spoken. Hell, we're waiting from this POV for Metch to come over because he's going to do his interview, but he's getting that extra work in, and he's making everyone wait, which is good. Get that work in. Do your thing. He didn't disappoint at the podium. Damn sure didn't disappoint with us. But this is an everyday thing. You can see this is not just going through motions. He's showing Dell. Look at this guy coaching, man. How lovely is this? He's literally coaching Tank Dell. Look at that. That's what he was doing to Nico Collins the other day, too. That's a freaking first-year player. Coaching your guy right there. It's a damn leader right there, that John Metchie. Impressive dude. Very impressive dude. Like crazy. Who will have more yards this season, Tank or Metch? Kind of want to see a preseason game, but I might say Tank. It seems like Tank and CJ just have crazy chemistry. So the intermediate game and stuff, it seems like CJ kind of likes to work with Tank, whether he's on the outside, inside, whatever. So I'll go Tank. But I'm impressed with both of them. Jacob asks, power move by Metchie must have been hard for McClain waiting in that AC media tent. He left, bro. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that. He left. McClain was gone by the time that happened. He went home and wrote. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about McClain. Metch will have more TDs. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know how many TDs you're expecting him to get. Rob says, cheers. Cheers, Rob. It's a long grind out there for the media grind and the player grind and all that. It's hot as hell out there. Going out there, covering the squad, watching all that. It's fun, but going to camp and then going from the studio and stuff. A lot of stuff going on. Can't wait to go tomorrow though. Wouldn't trade it for anything. Happy football season's here. Hall of Fame game going on right now. So we got plenty to get into. Deshaun's not playing in the preseason game because his preseason is Hall of Fame game. He's chilling. And I did check out that Dan Patrick stuff. That was quite entertaining. Appreciate everyone for coming through. Subscribe, like, right along, pretty please. It's been fun, and it's only going to get more fun tomorrow. Another interview coming up off the field. Be on the lookout for the Metchie video. Got all types of content coming up. Appreciate you for coming through. When it comes to this Texans game, just remember, we are all in this together. Thank you very much.
It's the Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, Locker Room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source. We the pulse of the city too. Landlocked. Got the game in the headlock. Localize every time. Can't stop. Won't